To move on to users can reset their password today in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and move that over to in progress, and I am going to go ahead and start with the front end work. So right now on my login page, I see just username, password, and submit. But if I look at my design, there should be a section for forget your password and a reset password button. And then that is going to open up a modal. So we're going to work on the adding the forgot your password with button component, and then we're going to work on the modal. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so it looks like it's just below the form. Okay, so first I'm going to try to figure out the structure of this component here. Okay, so it looks like this section is the form, so I'm probably going to put it underneath in another box. All right, and then it looks like we have some sort of text that says forgot your password. All right, and then we have a button, and the button says reset password. All right, nice. So this should be display flex because we want it to be a row. So that looks good. All right, I am going to check out the height of this button here so I can make my line height in the text the same. So this button is 40 pixels tall. I'm going to check out the button above it. Inspect that. That's also 40. Okay. So I'm going to then make this text here line height is equal to 40 pixels. And that is going to center the text here vertically. All right. Let's keep looking. It looks like there's a pretty substantial gap between these two. So I'm going to add a gap on my box. Start with 10. See if that looks like it's too much or not. That actually looks pretty good. All right, and now I'm going to add a border around this box so that way I can move it around and make sure I understand how things are working. All right, so it looks like this box goes across the whole screen, okay? So I should be able to say justify content center to get it centered. Perfect. Then I'm going to want to add a margin on top, all right, so that way it's not there. So I'm going to go ahead and look at what margin I already have. It looks like margin bottom 4, okay? So I'm going to add margin top 4 to this element to get the same distance between those two. I don't think that looks like enough in my opinion, so I'm going to try to bump that up. I think that looks a little bit better. Let me remove the border so I can get a better view. That looks pretty good to me. Yeah. All right. Let's return to our story. So create forgot password section with reset password button on login page. Done. All right. So now we are going to create the modal and an on click for both of those. So those are the next two things we're going to move on to do. Okay, so when I click reset password, I want a modal to open. So let's go ahead and look at what that's going to look like. All right, so I am going to go ahead and look into the modal here. So this is what the modal is going to look like. All right, so I'm going to copy this whole thing here. All right, and I'm going to add it down here. I'm going to eventually move it to its own component. All right, so we are going to say button on click on open. All right, so we can get rid of this button here. Seems like we can get rid of this little component too. and this one here. All right, so then we need to go ahead and copy and paste this in and then import everything. All right, I'm gonna add it up here. I'm going to import from React and Chakra UI. All right, and then I am going to go ahead and import all of these things here. Import, import. All right. So in my body, this is where I'm going to put my box with all my info. So I'm gonna do reset password info here. All right. Then I'm going to go and give it a try. So on click of this button, my modal should open, and it does. Whoop, whoop. All right, so now we just need to edit this modal here. You can see my X button closes it already. So Chakra UI does a lot of the heavy lifting for us in terms of modals. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at my design. All right, so it looks like we don't want to do a secondary action here. So I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay. And we are going to, instead of here, we're going to put send verification email. All right, that looks good. And I don't want color scheme blue, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, I don't really, I want to look at what the margin right 3 is doing. Okay, so it's going to put it, I'm gonna have to look into this. I'm curious if the modal folder always puts it to the right. So what happens if I get rid of the modal footer? Okay, if I get rid of the modal footer, it will center it. So I wanna do margin around, let's try 2. All right, I think I need a bigger margin around 4. That actually looks pretty nice in my opinion, okay? And then we need to modal title. So we can go ahead here and we can put enter the email address associated with your account. All right, let's see how that looks as the header. All right, it doesn't look great to me as the header, so I think I might put it in the body. So I'm actually gonna get rid of this header here, and then I'm going to, or maybe I'm going to keep the header but have nothing in it. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm gonna add this here. Enter the email address associated with your account. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna throw this in a text. And then I'm gonna throw it here. And then for the, I also need an input here. So I'm gonna go grab an input from my profile page, from my user details row, and I'm going to put it, all right, I'm not gonna worry about this right now, or this right now, or this. I'm gonna get rid of this. Gonna get rid of this for now. I don't think it needs to be a height of 32 pixels, so we can leave it default. All right, and I'm not worried about the flex aspect of it. All right, I feel like this is looking pretty good. All right, so I want a little bit of gap between these things. So I'm gonna go ahead and add margin bottom equals 4. And that looks good. All right, So there's not as much padding around it. I'm not worried about it because this is just a wireframe and I just wanted to quickly draw a modal so I understood what needed to go on it. So I'm okay with this looking a little bit different. But if you have a designer that's giving you the design, that is kind of where you would try to make sure you fit exactly what they are intending. Okay? I don't love that this doesn't match the input though, so I'm gonna bump this up to like 6 and see if that, okay, 6 looks better, but I want it to be, I think margin X is 6, and then I think margin Y I want to be 4. Okay, but I think maybe margin bottom 4. Okay. The text has margin bottom 4. It looks like there's already a little bit of a gap between it. So what if I just do margin? I know I just tried this and it was too big. But so margin bottom 4. Okay, and then let's try margin top 2. Okay, I like that. All right, so now we have create on-click function that opens modal prompting the user to enter their email address, check. Create form for forgot your password modal with email field and send verification email button, click. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to create the state that is going to save our email that we type in. And then it's going to save it on the back end, send it to the back end, okay? So before I do this though, I feel like my login component is getting pretty big. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make a folder in components and I'm going to write login, and then I'm going to add a forgot password modal.tsx. Now, we're in the make it work portion of things, so this would be sufficient to leave in here, right? But there's always room to make things better. So one way to make things better is to export it to a forgot password modal component. But another way we can make it better is to actually have a component, like a more agnostic component that we use, and we have a design for like what our project planning tool component looks like, and then go from there. And that would be one step that I would make on refactor that I'm not going to make here right now, okay? Because this is going to be a modal specific to forgetting password, but I could make a modal that is just my project planning tool modal, and then I could use props to pass in the correct information. But I don't know right now whether or not, I don't know right now what I'm doing in terms of other modals on my page. So I'm gonna just start with this. Once I have all my modals, I can go ahead and assess whether or not there's a style difference between the two, what props I would need, and then refactor from there. All right, so as you can see, I need to pass in a few props to make this work. I need to have is open, on, close, and this is type props. I need to then make my type props. I believe is open is supposed to be a Boolean, but I'm gonna go to the other page where the on close, I'm going to, I think it's just going to be like that. All right, then I'm going to export default forgot password modal. All right, now let me try to add it in here, and I'm going to say forgot password modal, and I'm going to pass in is open and on close. All right, so I do is open, on, close. Nice. All right, so that is going to be our make it work with a little extra make it better, but we're not gonna do everything, okay? So the next thing I wanna do is I wanna save the email address. So I'm gonna add a state here. I'm gonna say const email set email. I'm gonna say use state, and then I'm gonna start with an empty string. I am gonna go ahead and import this from React, okay? And then I'm going to make a function, which is const on change, and I'm going to pass in e, which is going to just be an event, and then I'm going to do set email e.target.value. All right, then I am going to make this on change set to on change here. Okay. So that's good. That's going to track whatever I'm typing in here. So then now I'm going to make my on click of the send verification email. Right now it just closes. We want it to close, but I'm going to make a custom function here to console log the email and then close. And then we'll also use this custom function to send the data to the back end once we feel good about what the function is doing and that we are saving this email correctly. So I'm going to do console.log email, and then I'm going to do on close. All right, and then I'm going to switch this to on click. Okay, so I'm going to open up my console so I can go ahead and see what's going on. And I'm going to type in calliestoscup@gmail.com, and then I'm going to click send verification email, and I see my email comes through and my modal closes. So that is pretty good. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually have the on submit function to send the user's email address to the API. Okay, I actually think I'm going to change the name of these two, so I'm going to do something like save email and submit email. Just makes it a little bit more readable in my opinion. Okay. All right, so we are going to, it looks like we want to call this a reset password route, okay? So we're going to go to our auth controller because that is where things come in. But with our reset password route, we don't need it. It doesn't need to be authorized. So technically we don't need to have it come through the auth controller. We could use the app controller instead if we wanted to for this. I'm gonna just, since it seems like we're putting everything through the auth controller, I'm just gonna keep up with that. But yeah, you could actually modularize your code a little bit more by not using it. Okay, so we are going to say this is a post request, and then we're going to say reset password, and we're going to say send reset password email. Okay, and we are going to accept a body here, and the body is just going to be an email address and string. All right, and then we can go ahead and just console.log the email. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and do reset password. Oh, we have to add our Axios request. So I'm going to copy this, go to my forgot password modal. I'm going to import Axios here, and then I'm going to post to auth/password reset password, which we see has been mapped. Okay, and then I'm going to send my email. All right, then I'm going to add a then block so I can see what the response is, which right now we have no response, but we will at some point. So I'm going to console log response.data. All right. So now we should be able to type in here, Callie Stoscup at gmail.com, and then we should be able to send verification email, and we see our email come through, which is awesome. Okay. The issue now though is I can also reset the password and I could send nothing. Okay. And you can see that it still didn't clear my state. Okay, so that will be the next thing that we do then. Okay, when we submit the email, we're going to send the email and then we will say set email equal to an empty string. Okay, so now we can, let's relaunch the page. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my console on my API. All right, so I can type in whatever I wanted here and send the verification email, and you can see that it's not being validated. All right, I could also send nothing, and you can see that it's not being validated. So we're gonna wanna do that on both the front end and the back end. I'm gonna actually just start with the back end this time, so that way we can test the validation on the back end, because once we add the validation to the front end, it won't ever make it to the back end, which is the goal. Okay, so I'm gonna say this email should be of type email, and then I'm gonna go add that class. All right, so I'm gonna say export class email, which should be this. All right, so now let's give this a try. Okay, I can reset my password. If I send, I'm gonna get an error now, okay? Because the email is not an email. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's go look at what's being thrown, okay? And let's go ahead and do response data, bad request, email must be email. Okay, so that caught the issue here. All right, so I'm gonna head back to my modal and I'm gonna add a catch block now. Dot catch error. Okay, and then I'm going to use a toast. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy my error toast here, and I'm going to add it. I need to create a toast here using the use toast hook. Okay, so now if there's an error, console.log error. If there's an error, okay, we will log it, okay? I think in the description though, we are going to do let's just do error.response.data.message. Okay, so let's try that again. Reset password, I send a blank one, and now I see email must be an email. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and fix the error message though. And I'm going to add in here, I'm gonna say please enter a valid email address. All right, so let's go ahead and look at what our options are, because clearly that's not it. So let's do options. Let's look up class validator options, error message. This looks like this might be what we're looking for. Trying to find one where they have a custom. All right. All right, not exactly what we're looking for here, but we will keep looking. Right, so they're using an exceptions factory, but I feel like I know I can do just an error message. From the actual thing. All right, so I'm gonna look at some code on my Coding with Callie website, pulling it up now. All right, and it looks like what I can do is pass in message like this, and then we're gonna do undefined like that. Okay, so let me take a look now at that. So I'm gonna do link, please enter a valid email address. Nice. Okay, so that is going to be in the case that it is non-email. So we can do like this, and I'm gonna get the same error. We could do calliestoscup@gmail.com, and that's still not gonna give us a good error. Okay, but as you can see, it's not gonna break the website. Perfect. Okay, so we were able to validate on the back end. So we are also gonna add some validation on the front end, okay? So we were just on profile and user details row last time, and we were able to use the if invalid email here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this, okay, and go back. So now we are going to validate on the front end as well. So we're going to say const is invalid email, or const invalid email, and then we're going to import this, and we are going to pass in the email, and then if invalid email, we are going to error and show a toast, okay, and then we are going to return. Looks like we don't have. Okay. So now you can see before I was getting a console logged error, right? Because we were hitting this catch block. So now if I do reset password and I don't send anything, you're gonna still get error, please enter a valid email, right? But it's not reaching the back end, okay? So we will also need to do on close instead of return here. All right, so let's try again. All right. So on close, and then maybe we can do else. Like this. And then it looks like we can actually just remove the on close logic and put it outside this condition. All right, so let's try. All right. So I'm going to reset password, send nothing, and then it says please enter a valid email. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna put the message the same though as the one on the back end. So that we had a consistent error toast. And then this will work with calliestoscup@gmail.com. Right, please enter a valid email address, but it doesn't get to the back end. All right, so we've got our validation, but if we do enter a valid email here and we send the verification email, well, that does not work. calliestoscup@gmail.com. Good to test the actual use case too. Please enter a valid email. So let's check if that's happening on the front end or the back end. All right, it's happening on the back end. All right. Is email. So I'm going to delete what we have here. Okay, and then I'm going to try it again to see if the custom message, if we did the options wrong. Email must be an email. Okay, so I'm going to actually comment that out and see, so we're console logging it. So let's go ahead and okay, so that worked. So it doesn't like something with this is email. Well, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let's comment this out again, and then let's take a look. At what is sending through. All right. So the email does look like an email to me. So then let's comment it back in. And let's try again. So test at test.com, Axios error, bad request. Email must be an email. All right, let's go to Google then. So we're to say Nest.js class validator email validator options. All right, let's look. Email string. Is it because it's not an object? Let's take a look at how it's supposed to come in. I think it might need to be an object, so we might need to take this away. At gmail.com. Okay, yeah, so we are passing in, so basically we're saying that it's going to be equal to an email object with a property email, but we were just passing in a string email. So now email is an object with a property email. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to my user story, and I'm going to say that yes, we did the onSubmit function that will send the user's email address to the API. And then we are going to do a generic toast once we send it, and that is where we will end today's video. Okay, so on response, we are going to do a toast. We'll call it success, and the description will be something generic like an email has, I'm going to say, check your email account for further directions. And then this is going to be status success. All right. That looks good. So let's give that a try. So I'm going to do reset email, put in an email, and then click send verification email. Perfect. All right, I'm going to add back my custom error message. And what was my custom error message? one. All right, I'm going to check to make sure that works for wrong. Perfect. And then I'm going to check one more time that it works for correct. Perfect. All right, this is where we will end the video. All right, and the next video we will start looking at the logic on the back end. All right, happy coding.